Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hi Jason, how are you today?
Pretty good, and how are you?
I'm good too, thank you. So we're going to talk about Wise Beyond Knowledge today, which is the next part of our leadership model.
Yeah, so Wise Beyond Knowledge is quite often pretty rare. A lot of people, especially now, are presenting leadership based on knowledge, not wisdom. And what I mean by this is that people actually having enough years behind them and sharing the wisdom behind their knowledge. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I think that's really important in leadership is not to spout off who you are, what you are, and why you are all the time. You don't need to do that to actually build a business, mm-hmm. Or anything at all. All you need to do is show up. Mm-hmm. And wisdom can occur really, really quickly. It depends on the person. So I remember when I first did healing, I was in a room of therapists and I was the only guy who did IT, and I stood up. Everyone was massage therapists, osteopaths, chiropractors, and then there was me. I was the only person in the room who I'm an IT programmer. Mm-hmm. So we had our first pair off and no one wanted to actually pair up with me. And it made sense. I was just like, well, I'm the guy why would anyone want to pair up with me? By the end of the week, I had an osteopath. I worked on one of the best chiropractors in Australia. I didn't know that. And the teacher said, oh my God, you did such a good job. Mm-hmm. So I was too scared. So I was just like, okay, better do everything right. And I had people asking me to check their stuff at the end of the week. And I was like, okay, why? Mm-hmm. And then I figured out why when I became a healer was I just was able to play the piano without knowing the notes. So there are people who just are born with an ability. Mm-hmm. Live piano players without knowing the notes. They just can play the piano. It's like they've done it before. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to be years wise. Mm-hmm. It's just having that ability to be wise in life. And so a lot of people have knowledge. I remember one of my teachers teaching me a particular technique in healing, and I thought she was really wise. Every time she'd explain stuff, I would clairvoyantly see it before she'd explain it. I was like, God, this woman is on point, because I was fully blown away by her. Then I had her work for me for a little while, and she had no clue what she was doing. And she was my teacher. Mm-hmm. And she had so much knowledge, and a walking dictionary of knowledge. Mm-hmm. She didn't live any of it.
I guess that's the difference, right? Isn't it? Like always wanting to do another course or like getting another certification to do something, even if you already are able to do it.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's really important to know that knowledge gathering is great. So there's a lot of people who information gather, and it's the most common thing that people do. And you can do this all the time right now. You can gather information and have a lot of knowledge and be really, really knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. But to be wise beyond your knowledge, there's not that many people who are in leadership positions following through with all the decision making processes that they're doing in life. So you find out around the corner when you look, you're just like, okay, they're not really sharing and living the very thing that they're sharing. Mm-hmm. So, and I think this is quite difficult, listeners, to be able to follow through is hard, because you have to make sacrifices to follow through. You have to be prepared to live by your words. Mm-hmm. So I remember, like, at the start of the academy, I said, I'm giving up chocolate. And I was like, damn it. Once I open my mouth, it's like, okay, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's no chocolate. I haven't had chocolate for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did the same with melted cheese. I don't eat any pizzas. Pizza's one of my favourite things to eat. Right? And so when we're talking about health, it's one of the hardest things to let go of things in life. So how do we learn to become wise?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what we've got to learn to first do is understand the knowledge that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to garner some knowledge and find out and understand it, and then execute it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will execute something once and they'll say, I've got it. I remember one person who joined our academy. Every time we'd have a session together, she would do a live on Facebook about how she knew everything about it, and I just found this really, really intriguing. I would never do something like that. So she garnered this information. She was broken, busted, crying with me, and then in an hour she'd post on Facebook how she learnt this amazing thing and she was living it, and if you wanted some help, come and see her.
It's kind of like as if I'm talking to you now, talking about what being wise beyond knowledge, and then I went, asking you all these questions and getting all this information and stuff from you, and then I'd go out and, post it on Facebook, be like, hey, like, I'm wise beyond knowledge and I'm doing all of these things, and yeah.
Well, this is what we have to deal with life, though.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in Facebook groups where people join them and they're sending me messages, and then I'm on a Facebook group that they're talking about what's really going on, and then they're talking about what's actually they're saying on their personal page or their business page, which is very contrasting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really, really common.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to be, and we're taught this, I think right now, especially in business, marketers teach you how to actually fabricate information to make sure that you are a standout and an authority.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't blame people for doing this right now. If you're being taught, if you want to get visible, say these things.
Mm-hmm.
You're not living by these things, you're saying these things. And then wisdom comes later, which is the truth in lots of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It just is the way in which you decide to deliver who you are has to start. If you take money from a person, let's say, I've just taken $1,000 from someone, and you do something shonky in the beginning of helping people as a leader. How are you going to be not doing something shonky later?
Mm-hmm.
So people can justify, oh, well, that was only when I started, I was doing that. Now I'm this, and I can verbalise I am this now.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be shonky, you'll be going to your next phase, and you'll be promising what you can do for your next phase. It's like telling people, I'm going to help you get to 7 figures in a business when you've not gotten to 7 figures in a business. That's not wise beyond knowledge. That's knowledge. I'll help you do something. And can you?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't proven that you've done that, how can you help other people with that? And I know people have.
Mm-hmm.
To promise that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like as if we were, saying now, hey guys, like, if you want to become an Olympic swimmer, come and see us and we'll help you. Like, none of us are Olympic swimmers or like even, professional swimmers or something. So who are we to say that in a way?
That's right. And like as an example, we've got a couple of people who are elite athletes in our academy, and I'm really focusing on them helping elite athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do it? I'm not an elite athlete.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to listen to them far more readily than someone like me.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in the game and they're playing the game.
They know what it's like.
They know what it's like. They know what they're dealing with. And they can definitely help them with all the frameworks that we have. It's better coming from them than coming from my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I really get that. So I look at the whys that they have, which is their elite basketball, and I know that they've got wisdom that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone around, one's played for Australia, one's an international basketball player. So I can't walk around and say, well, I'm going to help you with all of this stuff. I can with all the psychology, but if I started talking about sport and playing the game, no. Right? So it's knowing how to do this. And I'm not saying, like, there are amazing coaches who have never played the sport who are really, really good and wise coaches. So there is anomalies there where you have that. There's not as many absolute elite sports people who can coach as well.
I guess, yeah, that's a difference too. Because you're too much in the sport, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's just knowing there's certain gifts that a lot of people have, and some people have an amazing ability to bring people together, which is what a coach is designed to do in sport. And I think this is really, really important to understand. Like, there's not that many people like myself as a healer, for example, who have worked with so many people. So I've got the wisdom there. I used to work on 40 or 50 people a week.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, and most healers don't work with that many people, maybe 20, maybe 10. And then they can say, oh, you know, I've been working for 10 years, working with clients for 10 years, but working with 10, 15 people a week, maybe less, and I've been working 40 or 50. So who's got the wisdom there? Right, at the numbers, right? And so the repetition is what really creates the wisdom for people who don't necessarily have as much experience. And it comes down to linear years. How many linear years have you got? There's a really important part here. We talk about this in the success model as well, which is being flexible and listening. Because sometimes a wise person isn't wise when they've got more experience. They can become more narrow and defined.
Because they're not open to new things and things changing.
Yeah, so they're not open to new concepts and hearing someone else's opinions. That's not wise.
And how does it work with, like, say, younger people who may not have, like, this many years of experience, but like, actually do know what they're doing, or, like, you know, how oftentimes it feels like they're not being taken as seriously by certain people, saying, like, oh, you're so young. And then you're kind of like, you know, I had this experience, like, trying to look for work at some point, and I was like, I literally just finished my degree. We had, like, a couple of placements in between, but most of the jobs that were advertised was like, oh, you should have 3 years experience in the field. And I'm like, where am I meant to have that from?
Yeah, and so for young people, there's a really interesting concept around this, Filia, is you're a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Millennials don't have very much skin in the game as far as commitment, right? So from an older person's perspective, we struggle with you guys because we know you're going to try something and then you'll probably give up pretty quick, right? And you'll get on to the next thing. So there's a positive and a negative to that. You might not like something, and our generation just goes, right, let's just work hard and do something we don't like and work through it. Whereas you guys go, nah, not going to do that, right? So there's a challenge for your generation to know how to put skin in the game and really focus. Then you've also got this amazing capacity to give things a try, right? You've been told everyone gets a prize at school. Whereas when I was at school, when you did pass the parcel, there was only one prize, right? So
for us too, though, like in Europe, I don't know what it was like here, but for us it wasn't like everyone gets a prize.
Okay, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So for your generation, I remember this, right? When I started working in my first ever job, I was like talking to people, and this was my classic thing that I heard. Why are we doing it this way? This is the way we've always done it, Jason. And I'd sit there wondering why we were doing something so cumbersome and silly. And what I understood was I knew that I needed more wrinkles, right? And I was like, I'm going to have to wait. So what I did as a person going into new arenas, eventually you get a job, right? Because they are looking for young people all the time to go into jobs. So there's never a problem with getting a job. The thing is, not being heard is really normal when you start out. And I realised that if I had some wrinkles, I'd be listened to. right? And I had to wait.
I'd go and get some wrinkles somehow.
So I did a really cool technique, leading from behind. So all I did was ask the questions I knew the answer to, and got the smart people to answer the things. I'd say, hey, if we did it this way, would this be a faster way of doing this, or what do you think? Oh yes, Jason, why don't we do that? And then I'd hand the answer over to the expert, and the expert would tell me exactly what I needed to do. So I led from behind a lot when I started. And then there's something that I did very differently. I became a contractor early when I was in IT. And contractors are expected to be knowledgeable. So I was put in the position of being wise. And I would go into positions where I had no idea what I was doing. It was new programming languages, all new stuff. And they expected me to do it because I was getting paid more.
That's quite different than if you're just working in a company, right?
That's right. So working in a company, and I'd see it, like the people working in a company to the contractor, they were treated completely different, age-wise as well. So I was jumped in, contractor, I had started my first job in 1995. I was a contractor in 1997. So 2 years, jumped into contracting, and I was an expert.
That's really good.
Well, you have to have skin in the game to be able to put yourself in that position. And it really comes down to giving yourself that ability to take that risk in life, and not just, oh, well, this is all I can do.
So you would recommend taking risks?
I think you've got to take prudent risks. You've got to know, you've got to be able to back yourself. One thing I learned was I wanted to go overseas. So I became a contractor because I was going overseas. The reason for it. So I went and contracted in Canada, and then I came back as a full-time employee. I was just like, I could do contracting. This is far better. I was earning, I tripled my income in a day.
More, don't you?
So what's the point in doing something where you where you can earn more finances doing the same thing? Didn't make sense to me.
For sure, absolutely.
So I think as a leader, a wise beyond knowledge person you can trust. Because you'll look in the background and they'll say they'll do something, and they do it.
So they're reliable in that way.
And that's what we've got to be able to be in a leadership potential. We've got to be able to know that there's a reliability there. And wise beyond knowledge is a challenge because you can have what we're going to be talking about in the next one, which is focus, drive, and have absolutely kill it. Right? So you can have focus, drive, have complete lack of integrity, right, and get where you want to go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's heaps of people doing that. Yeah,
heaps. And there's so many times where I worked with a person who was really, really experienced. They wouldn't apply for that job, and a person who didn't have the experience had the focus, drive to put their hand up and get the job. And they had the mouth, and they had the knowledge to communicate how they needed to communicate. They didn't have the wisdom, and they were terrible bosses, but they just had focus, drive.
And just were willing to just go for it and do it. Yeah,
that's right. And I think if you want, this is the centre point of our model, by the way. So wise beyond knowledge is the key ingredients. Like everything in this model actually hooks off a system called the Kabbalah. So this is like your personality. This is who you are being. So everything draws a current to wise beyond knowledge. So courage, modelling behaviour, communication, emotional connection, focus, drive, humility, integrity, vision and awareness all drop into this, and they pull into the middle of this. So what happens with this part of you as a leader, it's the thing that actually drives everything to its centre. So all of the components that I just spoke about then have to be, they're like ingredients to the cake. So
you're putting them all together, and then it nourishes the wise beyond knowledge. That's amazing. And I could really see as well beforehand the modeling behavior and what you're saying as well, and to actually say do what you're saying.
That's right.
And so just be like, don't eat chocolate, but sitting at home and eating chocolate yourself, that would be, That's
right. So if we're looking at this, the wise beyond knowledge person has to have the courage to stand up for what they believe in. They have to model the behaviour, have to have good, clear communication, have emotional connection. They've got to have that drive. They've got to have humility so they're being heard. A lot of the... they've got to have integrity. They've got to build a level of integrity, which is quite often missing if you have the focus drive without the integrity. And not everyone has a vision. Not everyone is vision based. Okay, so that's something that's not necessarily as important in this model. And then the awareness is the pinnacle that allows you to be able to have the wisdom and live it from a personality perspective. So this is like a personality type. So who are you being when you're walking around the place? Are you, and how are other people considering you? So a very wise person doesn't pipe their own trumpet. They don't need to. Other people do.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. If you're actually not feeling so good and not feeling really wise and stuff, I think that's more often the ones that say like, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
Here I am. Give me some validation.
Give me some validation. So a wise person is not a chest beater. So one of the things that one of the people that I love in leadership is Morgan Freeman as an example. He's a great leader. He's a role model of leadership. You never hear Morgan Freeman talk about how amazing he is. No. I've never heard him, not once. Right? He's a person with wisdom beyond knowledge. There was this series called Conversations with God that I was listening to him. He has this way about him that connects with everybody and wants to know information and listens.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's brilliant at it. So I think if you've got that sort of capability, and I don't know one person who thinks he's a dickhead. I'm sure someone does. But,
I think on some level we all do.
Yeah.
That we are. I think that we are. But then again, we don't.
No, thinks he's a dickhead.
Oh,
There's not one person that thinks he's one.
Oh, yes. For sure. Like, I've never seen anyone who says like, oh, Morgan Freeman sucks.
Yeah, right. So he's got this magnetism about him, and he's got this something about him in his tone, everything that creates this. And I think the listening skills, the ability for him to communicate what he believes in without actually he's clear with what he believes in. That he's not arrogant in the way that he approaches what he believes in. And I think this is really, really important for us to understand. A wise beyond knowledge person will be talked about by other people in a generally pretty healthy way a lot of the time.
Yeah, because it's like an example, an inspiration.
Yeah, that's right. And so, listeners, if you want to be that person that's wise beyond knowledge, here's my suggestion. Work at what you do. Love what you do. Become the person you're always meant to be. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming the world. Create the world you want to live in. And if you want to create the world and you build the world that you want to live in, people will come and get support by you. And you'll be an amazing leader. If you're desperate to have something, you're desperate to stand out, you need validation all the time, you're not sitting in wise but not beyond knowledge. So you've got to let go of some things. Let go of the attachments to success, let go of the attachments to how people think of you, and just do what you're here and what you were born to do. You know, we all have a purpose, and this leadership model is designed to actually hook into your purpose. And a lot of people don't know what their purpose is. So they do stuff, and then all of a sudden their purpose is found. And this is very, very normal. So it's okay to not have a purpose and not know what you're here to do. It's just looking at how you can lead your life in a more authentic, more honest, more vulnerable way, so other people can actually believe in you because you're believable. And I know from, I guess, people talking about me as a leader, I've been told, I did a podcast with the lady Samantha on Friday, and she said, I've never seen anyone model the sort of leadership that you do in the academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know, like, Filia, for me, I'm me. I can't necessarily say or how I am as a leader. I think that's for other people to decide.
Yeah. You like, all you can do is give the best of you, and then other people can decide like what that is.
Yeah. So, you know, the feedback that I get is generally pretty positive. I don't always get great feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, really important from a person who's wise beyond knowledge as a leader, to take the feedback on and understand that you've got work to do to get better at it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think leadership's hard, right? There's leadership for leading people, and then there's leadership for leading your own life. And they are very, very different.
Mm. But you, like, you know, with everything, it comes with practice again as well, right? Like you were saying, like, you're very different to what you were like when you started with the academy.
Oh, 100%. I mean, where you are now, Filia, you're not leading people yet,
mm-hmm.
right? Your first job is to lead your own life well.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And for anyone who isn't leading other people right now, first port of call, how can you get up and do something better every day? Mm-hmm. And lead your life based on the wisdom that you have. Everyone has a piece of magic to share. Everyone has something amazing inside of them, and you've got to start working with that flavour, and then work on the things that you're not really able to do. Now, how old are you?
27.
Yeah. So I started as wanting to be a healer, I think 27, 28, somewhere around there. And so I had no knowledge of it. Mm-hmm. No knowledge of what it was, and I began the journey of finding purpose. And when I think about where I was at your age, you're far wiser than me. Right?
Not always.
Well, I was smoking doobies, drinking a lot, carrying on like an idiot. I wasn't being myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was faking it big time.
Mm-hmm. So
if I compared myself to where you are and where I was at 27, you are far wiser than me. Like, far wiser. You can look at me now, I'm 50, mm-hmm. right, and say, oh, this guy's a wise dude, but your age, where you are, blinding more wise than me. Like, blindingly more. Okay, and there might be differences in the. I've always had this thing about knowing people and where they're at and all of that sort of stuff since I was a kid. But we're talking leadership here. Mm-hmm. As a leadership type of person, streaks ahead of me, streaks. Mm. Right, and this is where it's understandable. Like, you've done our academy and you're working hard on yourself, and I know that from where you started and where you are now, it's completely contrasting, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I admire people who do personal development early, right? And, you know, you started earlier than me. Mm. So you've got that wisdom. There's a guy in the academy who started at 22, and, you know, I know that when he hits 50, or when even he hits 27, he's just going to be so much more available and beyond where I am right now, or I was back then.
Which is awesome, like, yeah. You know, to just have it, like, do it younger, you got more time to practice all the things, and yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
Cool.
It is really cool, because look, the first stage of your development from 0 to 27 is your child state phase, mm-hmm. in astrology. It's your first journey, mm-hmm. right? They call this Saturn Return. So this is all your mistake-making, stupid shit that you do.
Oh, yeah.
Very unwise decision-making.
Doing that.
Yeah, if I think about what I was doing in my teenage years and early 20s, sometimes I think, how could I still be alive? Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're mistake-riddled. You get a bit wiser as you do age, right? When people start early, they become wiser early in their 30s especially. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like having kids. Senka, our astrology teacher, said this, that my kids are really lucky because I had them I had my first child when I was 36. And I had Charlotte when I was 44.
Wow.
Right? So, not stupid. Very mature in my decision-making processes.
It's not like, I was 18 and it was an accident.
No. So Charlotte's got a great... she said Charlotte's got a far better deal as from a father perspective than a lot of dads, simply just because of the age. Not doing silly things like, if I had her... I had my kids in my 20s, I wouldn't have been doing the best job as a dad, I don't think. So it does come down to sometimes a little bit of wrinkle in this approach. As a leader, when you're young, there's amazing leaders who are making really good money, but are they leading from wise? And it does take years. And I think, listeners, don't get so fixated if you're in your 20s and you're hearing this just going, oh, Jason's a prick then because he's saying, oh, I can't be wise. It's decision-making processes and time. And as you get older, when I was a therapist, I used to talk to people in their 50s and 60s, and I remember one guy saying, Jason, sex won't be so important to you eventually. I was like, what a lie, because I was horny back then, and he's right. Now I don't find intimacy and sex the most important thing in my journey, and connection with my partner in that way is nowhere near as important to me now. And he was like, yeah, this will be like this, Jason.
You're like, oh no, that's not true. I guess it makes sense biologically as well.
Yeah, but when you're in your age that you're in, you're just like, nah, that's not going to happen to me. I remember when I was 18, I was going, I'm going to still keep going out and having fun and all of this sort of stuff. Look at all these people, they're looking old at 24, the way they make their decisions, but you just stop going out to the pubs and clubs later on because you just don't. Right? Things change.
Absolutely.
Right, and this is what we've got to learn to be able to do. If we want to lead really, really well, don't focus on getting it right first time. You've got to learn to be patient. So impulsive behaviours and impatience is not wise. You've just gone, oh, damn. So you've got to know how to make decisions that are prudent. Learn off people who have something that they can help you with, and listen and do what they say, because they might have something to give you. And if we don't, that's not wise. Like if someone's telling you something that is really good for you to do and you just go, nah, I'm going to do the opposite to that, the results are disastrous. And I've seen this with lots of people in the academy. I'm not going to do what Jason says. I'm going to do what a wise person says. How's that going for you? Oh, yeah, not good. Results don't work so well when we don't listen.
That's true, yeah.
So a wise young person listens to a person who has a background of getting where the person wants to go and is willing to deliver that information and share that information in a really, really healthy way to help the other person make clearer decisions. That's wise as a young person, in my opinion.
Cool. Yeah, listening to the ones that you want to be like.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Or similar to. Is there anything else you would like to add to Wise Beyond Knowledge? A step to take, something to do?
Well, look, I think I've said it. Just listen to the people who are where you want to go. You know decisions that are going to be good for you and ones that are not. Make them and follow through. Follow through on your walk your talk. Stop and repeat over and over again. Do lots. Don't just do it once. Do it many times. Thousands of times. I've got over 20,000 sessions that I've done. 25 roughly. So I'm a little bit of an expert in helping people now. So I've got a bit of wisdom there. So for helping people and finding out who they are, what they are and why they are, I'm a person who you could listen to now. So I think those pieces of advice would be really handy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the chat.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you and we really appreciate your time because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com.
Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend, and if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.